First contact and betrayal. The beacon of unity had never shone brighter. The void between Earth and Mars, once an insurmountable gulf, had become a mere commuter's inconvenience. Humanity had spread across the solar system with the determined efficiency that characterized our species. Mining operations on Mercury's dark side, vast orbital habitats circling Venus, the sprawling cities of Mars, and research outposts scattered across the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. This expansion hadn't come without cost. For nearly 3 decades, Earth and its colonies had engaged in what historians euphemistically called resource disputes. In reality, they were wars, brutal, efficient conflicts fought with kinetic weapons and radiation-hardened drones. The most devastating had been the Martian Independence War, which left 14 million dead and ended with the formation of the Martian Republic. For 11 years, an uneasy peace had held. The Terran-Martian Accord, signed in the neutral territory of Ceres, established trade routes, mutual defense pacts, and most importantly, protocols for resolving disputes without resorting to violence. Commander Kai Donovan had been present for the signing, then a junior officer serving as part of the diplomatic escort. Now, as captain of the UES Discovery, Earth's most advanced deep space vessel, he found himself contemplating that moment as he stared at the anomaly on his view screen. "Distance to object?" he asked, his voice steady despite the tension that had settled across the bridge. "Approximately 4.7 astronomical units beyond Neptune's orbit, Commander," replied his navigation officer, Lieutenant Jin Park. "Captain," interjected his science officer, Dr. Ileana Reyes, "it's maintaining position almost as if it's waiting." The object, if it could be called that, defied conventional description. It shimmered like quicksilver but remained perfectly stationary relative to the sun. Sensors indicated it was approximately 3 kilometers in diameter, with a density that fluctuated in regular patterns. "Are we receiving any transmissions?" Kai asked. Communications Officer Tomas Vega shook his head. "Nothing on standard frequencies, Commander, but there's something. It's like background radiation, but patterned. I think it might be a form of communication we don't understand yet." The discovery of the object had been accidental. A routine survey mission to the Kuiper Belt had detected unusual gravitational readings, and the Discovery had been dispatched to investigate. What they found would change humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. "They weren't alone." "Commander," Dr. Reyes called out, her voice rising with urgency. "The object is changing." On the view screen, the silver sphere began to unfold like a blooming flower, revealing an interior structure of impossible complexity. Geometric patterns shifted and realigned themselves in 3 dimensions, forming what could only be described as a gateway. "All hands to alert status," Kai ordered, his training taking over. "Prepare defensive systems and open a channel to Earth Command." Before Tomas could comply, a beam of coherent light shot from the center of the unfolded structure, passing harmlessly through the Discovery's hull and projecting a 3-dimensional image above the bridge's central console. The image coalesced into a humanoid figure, tall and slender with 4 arms and skin that shifted between shades of emerald and azure. "We are the Veridians," the figure announced in perfect English, its voice resonating with harmonics that made Kai's skin prickle. "We have observed your civilization for many cycles. The time for introduction has come." First contact. Kai thought, a mix of fear and wonder coursing through him. This moment would be remembered throughout human history, assuming there would be humans left to remember it. Over the following months, diplomats and scientists from both Earth and Mars worked tirelessly to establish relations with the Veridians. The aliens claimed to be representatives of a vast coalition of species spanning several galaxies, united by common interests and governed by protocols established eons ago. They offered technological insights that accelerated human development by centuries: gravitational manipulation, efficient fusion reactors, medical advances that extended human lifespans. In return, they asked only for cultural exchange and permission to establish outposts within the solar system. Their curiosity about human art, music, and philosophy seemed genuine. and their willingness to share knowledge made them popular among the general population. Only a few voices urged caution, primarily military strategists and seasoned diplomats who noted the careful way the Veridians avoided certain questions about their history and social structure. Captain Layla Nazari was among the skeptics. Now serving as military liaison to the diplomatic corps, she found herself increasingly uncomfortable with how readily humanity embraced these alien benefactors. "They're giving us only what they want us to have," she argued during a closed Security Council meeting 11 months after first contact. "We still know almost nothing about their actual capabilities or intentions." "Captain Nazari," the Earth's Secretary General replied, "the Veridians have helped us solve our energy crisis, environmental degradation, and provided medical technology that's saving millions of lives. What more proof of goodwill do you need?" "I need to know why," Layla countered. "No advanced civilization gives technology to a less developed one without expecting something in return. That's not cynicism, it's historical fact." The answer came unexpectedly during a routine archaeological expedition to Saturn's moon Enceladus. Beneath 5 kilometers of ice, researchers discovered something impossible, an artificial structure predating human civilization by at least 70,000 years. Inside was a beacon, dormant but intact, and inscribed with symbols that linguists eventually deciphered as a warning. "They come as friends, they leave nothing behind." Further excavation revealed evidence of a thriving civilization that had once inhabited Enceladus, a civilization that had apparently been completely erased. Similar beacons were subsequently found on Mars and Venus, hidden beneath the surface and containing the same warning. The discoveries caused immediate diplomatic tension. When confronted, the Veridian representatives expressed surprise and concern, suggesting that the beacons must be remnants of conflicts predating their civilization. They offered to help investigate but were politely refused. Human unity, so recently established, began to fracture again. Earth's governments, heavily invested in Veridian technology and fearful of losing access to it, advocated for continued diplomatic relations with increased caution. Mars, traditionally more isolationist, demanded immediate withdrawal of all Veridian representatives from the solar system. The standoff lasted precisely 11 years after first contact. On what would later be called the Day of Dissolution, Layla Nazari was attending a security briefing at the Lunar Command Center. The topic was increased Veridian activity near the asteroid belt, where they had established their primary outpost. "Their ships have been moving in and out of the belt at an accelerated rate," the intelligence officer reported. "Sensor readings indicate they're transporting large amounts of material, but we haven't been able to determine what." Layla was about to ask for clarification when all communication systems simultaneously activated. On every screen in every habitat throughout the solar system, the face of a Veridian appeared. Not the diplomatic representatives humans had grown accustomed to, but a different subspecies with sharper features and eyes that reflected no light. "People of Earth and its colonies," the alien announced, its voice devoid of the harmonics that had made previous communications so pleasant. "Your evolutionary phase has been deemed insufficient for continued independent development. As is our protocol with species that show potential but lack proper guidance, we will now assume direct control of your developmental path. Resistance is discouraged but expected. It will be brief." The message lasted exactly 11 minutes. When it ended, the Lunar Command Center's windows flashed with brilliant light as Earth's moon was struck by concentrated energy beams from previously undetected weapons platforms hidden within the asteroid belt. Similar attacks targeted Mars, Venus, and every major human settlement throughout the solar system. In 11 minutes, humanity's golden age of expansion ended. The war for survival had begun. The initial attack devastated human infrastructure. Orbital habitats around Earth and Mars were vaporized. Ground-based defenses, designed primarily to counter threats from other human factions, proved woefully inadequate against weapons that could melt through kilometers of rock. Cities burned, communication networks collapsed, Panic spread as reports of casualties climbed into the hundreds of millions. But humanity did not break. Layla Nazari survived the attack on Lunar Command by pure chance. She had been in a deep-level briefing room with reinforced walls when the bombardment began. Emerging into chaos, she found herself the highest-ranking officer among the survivors and immediately took command. "We need to re-establish communications with all remaining military units," she ordered, her voice steady despite the dust and smoke filling the damaged command center. "Priority 1 is determining what assets we still have. Priority 2 is coordination with Mars." Her decisiveness rallied the shell-shocked personnel. Within hours, they had patched together a makeshift communication system using old military frequencies that predated Veridian contact. The picture that emerged was grim but not hopeless. Earth had lost approximately 30% of its population in the initial attack, with another 25% in areas without power, water, or essential services. Mars had fared better due to its predominantly subterranean habitats, losing about 15% of its population. Most importantly, both planets still maintained significant military capabilities. Earth's deep space fleet had been on training exercises beyond Jupiter when the attack came, while Mars' famous Ghost Fleet, vessels officially decommissioned but secretly maintained in case of conflict with Earth, remained intact in underground hangars. 7 days after the attack, representatives from Earth and Mars met in person for the first time since the bombardment. The meeting took place in a hastily constructed bunker beneath the Martian polar ice cap, attended by military leaders, and whatever government officials had survived the initial assault. "We propose the immediate formation of a unified command structure," said Admiral Haruki Tanaka, now the de facto leader of Earth's military. "All human forces, regardless of origin, united under a single strategic direction." "Mars agrees," replied Chancellor Ezra Akhafer, his face gaunt from sleepless nights. "The Human Defense Coalition will combine our resources and coordinate all aspects of the resistance. But we need a leader, someone who understands both Earth and Mars, who has military experience but also diplomatic skills." All eyes turned to Layla Nazari, whose mixed Earth-Mars heritage and distinguished career made her uniquely qualified. "I accept the responsibility," Layla said simply. "But understand this, we are not fighting to restore what was. That world is gone. We fight for the right to determine our own future, whatever form it takes." The newly formed coalition faced staggering challenges. The Veridians controlled space beyond Earth orbit, their technologically superior vessels easily outmatching conventional human ships. Their ground forces, biomechanical constructs controlled by a central intelligence, were steadily establishing footholds on Earth's surface, particularly in regions devastated by the initial attack. Layla recognized that conventional warfare would lead to inevitable defeat. Instead, she implemented a three-pronged strategy that would come to define humanity's resistance and its ultimate triumph. It was time to show these aliens exactly what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge of extinction: resistance and triumph. The newly formed Human Defense Coalition faced a grim reality. Against the technological might of the Veridians, conventional warfare was suicide. Their ships could navigate gravitational fields with precision that defied human physics. Their weapons could penetrate any known shield. Their biomechanical soldiers could operate in environments that would kill humans in seconds. But Layla Nazari had not risen to command through conventional thinking. "We won't win by fighting like them," she explained to her war council 3 weeks after the day of dissolution. "We need to fight like us, adaptable, unpredictable, and willing to take risks no logical species would consider." The council chamber, carved deep into the Martian bedrock, was filled with the surviving leadership of humanity. Military commanders with haggard faces, scientists whose research stations had been obliterated, civilian leaders who had watched their cities burn. "The Veridians expect us to behave like every other species they've conquered," Layla continued, gesturing to the holographic display showing the methodical advance of alien forces. They predict will protect our population centers, that will attempt to maintain supply lines, that will follow military doctrine. So we won't. What followed became known as the Phoenix Protocol, a strategy so audacious that many thought it would hasten humanity's extinction rather than prevent it. First, all remaining orbital facilities were evacuated and then deliberately scuttled in seemingly haphazard patterns. The resulting debris fields created navigational hazards that even Veridian ships couldn't easily traverse. Second, Earth's surface forces launched simultaneous attacks on every Veridian landing zone, not to win, but to establish a pattern of predictable human response. "They're studying us," Layla explained to her skeptical generals. "Let's give them exactly what they expect to see." The third phase was the most controversial. While the Veridians were occupied with Earth's surface, the bulk of humanity's remaining space-capable vessels, a cobbled-together fleet of military ships, converted freighters, and hastily armed civilian craft, executed a high-risk burn toward Jupiter, appearing to abandon Mars to its fate. "They're following," reported Fleet Commander Vikram Patel from the bridge of the EMS Defiance. "Just as you predicted, Admiral." "Good," Layla replied, her face grim on the secure channel. "Now for the part where we find out if humans are as adaptable as I've gambled we are." The Galilean maneuver would become legendary in military academies for centuries to come, assuming humanity survived to establish such institutions. The human fleet, seemingly fleeing toward Jupiter's moons, suddenly executed a complex series of gravity assists, using the massive planet's moons as slingshots. The movements appeared chaotic, disorganized, the desperate actions of a species in panic. The Veridian Pursuit Force, operating on precise algorithmic predictions, found their targeting systems overwhelmed by the seemingly irrational trajectories. When the human ships abruptly cut engines in the shadow of Callisto, the Veridians calculated a 98.7% probability that the human vessels were conserving fuel for a longer escape burn. What they couldn't calculate was human audacity. "Execute Operation Blackout," Layla ordered from her command post on Mars. Throughout the human fleet, specially modified electromagnetic pulse devices, technology adapted from the Veridians' own gifts years earlier, activated simultaneously. The pulse was directional, weak by military standards, but precisely calibrated to affect one specific system: the quantum communication nodes that linked the Veridian ships to their central command. For 7 crucial minutes, the Veridian Pursuit Force was cut off from the hive intelligence that guided their decisions. "All ships execute attack pattern Typhoon," Commander Patel ordered. The human fleet, rather than continuing its chaotic flight, suddenly coordinated with precision that would have been impossible without months of preparation. Small, agile fighters launched from larger carriers, targeting the now isolated Veridian vessels with weapons that appeared primitive, until they detonated. "The Promethean warheads are working," exclaimed Lieutenant Freya Johansson from the tactical station. "Their shields can't compensate." The warheads, another adaptation of Veridian technology, created localized distortions in the fabric of space-time. Nothing dramatic enough to threaten planetary bodies, but sufficient to disrupt the precise gravitational manipulations that Veridian ships relied upon. By the time the Veridian communication network re-established itself, 37% of their pursuit force had been disabled or destroyed. The remainder, suddenly facing an enemy that had revealed unexpected technological capabilities, retreated to defensive positions near Saturn. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had scored a significant victory. The Veridian response was swift and brutal. Unable to locate the source of the human fleet's unexpected technological leap, they intensified attacks on Earth's remaining population centers. Cities that had been occupied were now simply obliterated. The death toll, already in the hundreds of millions, climbed higher. "They're trying to force us to capitulate by threatening our civilian population," Dr. Omar Nassar, the coalition's chief xenopsychologist, explained during an emergency council meeting. "It's a standard tactic they've likely used successfully against other species." Then they don't understand humanity at all, growled General Zhang Wei, commander of Earth's remaining ground forces. They're just making us angrier. Layla nodded, her expression somber. Nevertheless, we need to accelerate the next phase. Dr. Ekaterina, what's the status of Project Orpheus? Dr. Valentina Ekaterina, a quantum physicist who had been leading a research team buried deep within Olympus Mons on Mars, activated a holographic display. We've confirmed our hypothesis, she said, her voice carrying the precise accent of someone raised in the lunar colonies. The Veridians operate as a distributed consciousness. Their individual units, ships, soldiers, even their diplomatic representatives, are semi-autonomous but remain connected to a central intelligence. Which is why the EMP tactic worked, Layla mused. Precisely, Dr. Ekaterina continued. But we've discovered something else. Their communication system doesn't just transmit information, it transmits consciousness. And it operates on principles similar to the technology they shared with us years ago. Technology we integrated into nearly every system in the solar system, Admiral Tanaka said grimly. Yes, but that's also our opportunity, Dr. Ekaterina replied. We've been able to isolate their communication frequency. More importantly, we believe we can transmit our own signal, a kill switch that will sever their connection permanently. A stunned silence fell over the council chamber. You're talking about destroying their consciousness, Chancellor Ockhafer said finally. Not just defeating them militarily, but essentially killing their species. Their collective consciousness, Dr. Ekaterina corrected. Individual Veridians would survive, but they would be just that, individuals cut off from their hive mind. How do we deliver this kill switch? Layla asked, cutting through the ensuing ethical debate. That's the problem, Dr. Ekaterina admitted. It needs to be uploaded directly to their command node, what we believe is their central processing hub. Based on our analysis of their movement patterns and energy signatures, we believe it's located on their largest vessel, stationed in orbit around Saturn. So we need to infiltrate the most heavily defended Veridian ship in the solar system, Layla summarized. A ship protected by technology centuries beyond our own, likely crewed by thousands of alien soldiers, to upload a signal that may or may not work. Dr. Ekaterina nodded grimly. Layla was quiet for a long moment, then straightened her shoulders. I'll lead the mission myself. Operation Trojan was the culmination of human ingenuity in the face of near extinction. Using technology salvaged from captured Veridian scout ships, Earth engineers constructed a hybrid vessel that emitted Veridian identification signals. The ship, named Pandora, was crewed by a small team of volunteers led by Admiral Nazari herself. This is likely a one-way mission, she told her crew of 12 as they prepared to depart from the secret base on Mars' moon Phobos. If anyone wants to stay behind, now is the time. No one moved. It has been the highest honor of my life to serve with each of you, Layla continued, her voice steady. Whatever happens, remember that today we fight not just for our own survival, but for the right of all species to determine their own destiny. The Pandora launched under cover of a massive solar flare, natural interference that would help mask their approach. As they navigated the treacherous journey toward Saturn, the human resistance launched simultaneous diversionary attacks throughout the system, drawing Veridian attention to a dozen different locations. We're being hailed, reported communications officer Zhen Liu as they approached the massive Veridian command ship. They're requesting identification codes. Transmit the sequences we recovered from the scout ship, Layla ordered, her heart pounding despite her calm exterior. For 30 agonizing seconds, the Pandora drifted toward the alien vessel, vulnerable and exposed. They've accepted our credentials, Zhen announced finally, disbelief evident in his voice. They're instructing us to dock at Auxiliary Bay 7. The docking procedure was tense but uneventful. As the airlock cycled, Layla turned to Dr. Raphael Okonkwo, the quantum engineer responsible for delivering the kill switch. How long will you need once we reach their central processor? 3 minutes to establish the connection, another 2 to upload the program, Raphael replied, clutching the specialized device they'd built for this purpose. After that, well, either it works or we're all dead anyway. 5 minutes, Layla repeated. We can give you that. The infiltration team, wearing armor salvaged from Veridian ground forces, moved through the enormous vessel with practiced precision. Their intelligence had been correct. The ship's interior pathways were marked with symbols matching those found in captured Veridian databases. They encountered surprisingly few guards. Most areas were staffed by what appeared to be maintenance drones, biomechanical constructs with limited awareness of their surroundings. They're not expecting infiltration, Lieutenant Darius Jackson whispered as they approached the central core. Their arrogance may be our greatest advantage. The command center was unlike anything humans had imagined. Rather than a bridge with control stations, they entered a vast spherical chamber filled with a swirling, luminescent fluid. Suspended within this liquid was a crystalline structure that pulsed with patterns of light that seemed to follow mathematical progressions of impossible complexity. That's it, Raphael breathed, the physical manifestation of their collective consciousness. Before they could approach, a voice spoke, not aloud but directly into their minds. We have been aware of your approach since you entered the Saturnian system. The liquid around them began to coalesce into humanoid shapes, Veridians, but different from those they had encountered before. These were more ethereal, their forms barely constrained within physical boundaries. Your species continues to demonstrate unexpected resourcefulness. It is why we selected you for elevation. Elevation? Layla challenged, buying time as Raphael slowly positioned himself closer to the crystalline structure. Is that what you call genocide? Not genocide, transcendence. Your individual consciousnesses would have been preserved within our collective. Your unique perspectives would have enriched us as they have with 17 species before you. Without our consent, Layla countered, without our choice. Choice is inefficient. The path to optimal development is clear. Individual species cannot be trusted to select correctly. As the entity spoke, Raphael had reached the crystal structure. With movements disguised as a nervous fidget, he attached the transmission device to its base. Your attempt to disrupt our consciousness will fail. We have evolved beyond such vulnerabilities. Maybe, Layla acknowledged, but that's not the only thing we brought with us. With a subtle hand signal, she activated the secondary system they had brought aboard, a modified version of the Promethean warheads that had proven so effective at Jupiter. The effects were immediate and catastrophic. The localized space-time distortion disrupted the precise quantum fields maintaining the Veridian consciousness matrix. The liquid medium began to boil, the crystalline structure to fracture. What have you? The voice in their minds cut off as Raphael completed the upload. Throughout the solar system, every Veridian ship, soldier, and system simultaneously lost connection to the central intelligence that had guided them for millennia. We need to go, Raphael urged, grabbing Layla's arm. This entire chamber is becoming unstable. Their retreat was chaos. The Veridian vessel, suddenly without central guidance, began shutting down critical systems. Emergency bulkheads closed randomly. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. The Pandora is still at the docking bay, Zhen reported as they fought their way back. But we have maybe 5 minutes before this whole ship comes apart. They reached their vessel with seconds to spare, disengaging just as the massive Veridian command ship began to break apart. Throughout the solar system, reports flooded in of Veridian forces suddenly stopping mid-attack, their ships drifting aimlessly, their ground forces standing immobile like deactivated robots. Did we kill them? Layla asked softly as the Pandora accelerated away from the disintegrating command ship. No, Raphael replied, studying the data streaming across his tablet. We severed their connection to the collective. They're individuals now, for perhaps the first time in their evolutionary history. 11 months after Operation Trojan, representatives of humanity met with a delegation of individual Veridians. The aliens were changed, uncertain, even hesitant without their collective to guide them. their once imperious demeanor replaced by something approaching humility. "We seek to understand what we have become," their designated speaker said, using verbal communication rather than telepathy, "and to make amends for what we attempted to do to your species." The Terran Veridian accords established boundaries and protocols far different from those that had followed first contact. Earth and Mars remained wary, but open to limited cooperation. The technology the Veridians had shared remained, but now humanity understood its origins and limitations. More importantly, humanity had proven itself. Word spread throughout the galaxy of the species that had not only resisted Veridian elevation, but had fundamentally changed the nature of a civilization that had dominated interstellar affairs for millennia. Other species, long hidden from Veridian attention, began to make contact. New alliances formed, new possibilities emerged. 11 years after the day of dissolution, Admiral Layla Nazari stood on the observation deck of Harmonia Station, the first truly collaborative project between humans, Veridians, and 3 other species. Below her, Earth shone blue and white, still bearing the scars of war but healing. Mars gleamed red in the distance, its terraforming accelerated by technological exchanges freely given rather than imposed. "Do you think we made the right choice?" asked Dr. Ekaterina, joining her at the viewport. "We could have destroyed them completely." "And become what we fought against," Layla replied. "The right to self-determination means little if we deny it to others, even former enemies." "The Galactic Council is ready for your address, Admiral," an aide informed her. Layla nodded, straightening her uniform. The position of humanity's first representative to the newly formed council was largely ceremonial, but she understood its importance. Humans were newcomers to interstellar politics, yet already they had reshaped its foundations. As she walked toward the council chamber, Layla reflected on the journey that had brought all of humanity, to this moment. From the brink of extinction to a place of influence among the stars. From isolation to connection with civilizations beyond imagination. The path had been painful, the cost measured in hundreds of millions of lives. But humanity had emerged not just intact, but transformed, stronger, wiser, and ready to claim its place in a universe far more complex and dangerous than they had ever imagined. Yet also more wondrous than they had dared to dream.